Hello and welcome to your in-depth monthly horoscope for May 2023 for the Sun or the Ascendant. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to give a collective overview and some standout details, but then I will go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces and explore those in much greater depth. Now, if you are a returning viewer to my channel, thank you so much for joining me once more. If you're new here, it's great to have you with us. This is very much a community, so please do share any thoughts you have. I do interact with each one, and I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Now, if you would like to ascend above zodiac astrology and get a much greater understanding of your life force and prospects, if you do give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I can prepare for you your life roadmap report. This will give you an understanding of the patterns that are repeating in your life, the more challenging ones, but also the ones that you can seize upon more successfully so. Gaining a greater awareness of those will help you to make greater progress, gain greater traction. And in my special package of 30% off, you can also get your 12-month personal forecast. No 2 charts are the same, totally unique to you, and can give you searing insights. If you don't know your time of birth, I've developed a new report package which doesn't include an ascendant and assumes the moon at midday, and this is based on your sun sign. And if you really enjoy YouTube videos, this will be very reflective of what your sun is. Please see below for more information on that too. Now, as we come into this very important month for resources, the economy, everyday money, the cost of living, we do have a conjunction, an exact cazimi as it's known, between the Sun and Mercury on day 1. And that could give us the opportunity, despite the fact that Mercury is in retrograde, to rethink something in a more successful way. But it is true to say that through the first 3 days, the Sun and Mercury are very closely aligned. Now, Mercury comes out of its retrograde on the 15th, but it doesn't come out of its post-retrograde shadow until the 31st. So this theme of finances is going to be quite consistent through the month. Also on the 5th, we have a lunar eclipse. This lunar eclipse is in Scorpio. If this seems to ring a bell, if we think back to last 8th of November, we had a lunar eclipse in Taurus. So this is the mirror image of that eclipse. And I feel it's going to give us a lot of clues as to how things will start to move forwards in terms of those economic trends. Because this one also features the disruptor planet of Uranus. In fact, in week 2 of this month, the Sun is very close to Uranus. And this is pushing us to evolve. You know, society and the world of work, for example, is changing at the speed of light. Trying to resist it is not necessarily going to be the best way forwards. And of course, the sign of Taurus is very much about trying to adhere to what's stable and gives us a sense of security and is consistent. And I think that could prove a little bit futile. But on the 7th, Venus, the planet which governs the sign of Taurus, moves from the quick-witted and flirty Gemini, where it is for the first week, and moves into the home-loving and security-loving sign of Cancer. And it will be there through to the end of the month. If there are any hopes to improve where you live or move or add to the family, they're boosted by that transition. It is true to say, however, that at that precise moment, Venus is in what's known as a quincunx with Pluto, a 150-degree angle. So anything around a romantic situation needs to take into account what the motives are, and Pluto often disguises those motives and uses charm or money in order to get its way. So just be conscious of that. But in week 2, we do have that conjunction between the Sun and Uranus that I spoke of before. So being flexible in our approach to resources is absolutely vital. Mercury goes direct on the 15th. On the 16th, so Jupiter moves into the sign of Taurus after Jupiter's rather eccentric journey through the signs of Aquarius, Pisces and Aries in the last couple of years. Now, Jupiter in the sign of Taurus is very positive for the economy. I think it's a much more self-confident position, and that's something to savour. But on the 19th we have a new moon in the sign of Taurus, which is quite late, and therefore it links up with Pluto. Now, Pluto started its retrograde at the start of this month, but in this particular equation is a force for good, and also Neptune and Mars are feeding into the new moon in a very positive way. I think there is going to be better news. We all know that bonds, government bonds, have taken quite a hammering over the last few months, and equities have stood up quite well. But I think there is going to be some better news. Inflation will potentially come down. People will start to feel a bit less oppressed. Energy prices hopefully will also drop too. But the 20th does see the rather charismatic energies of Mars in Leo begin. And this is going to be really important because, of course, we've got a long journey of Venus in the sign of Leo this year, a 4-month transit. And Mars moving into Leo is quite the show-off. So if you are someone who's interested in performance, in music, amateur dramatics, you have a creative talent that you want to manifest, then this can be a very important transit. But I should say that across weeks 2 and 3, Mars in late Cancer and then early Leo is going to be face to face with Pluto. And that's not so good, I feel, in terms of perhaps the potential for increased tension around domination. And domination these days seems to be played out on the world stage by very aggressive policies to do with nationalism. So hopefully this is not going to be a spark of some kind of increase in violence on the world stage. But Mars opposite Pluto is, you know, the two ruling planets of Scorpio. This is kind of like the OK Corral, but on the world stage. And I think obviously with the potential for some big clashes in terms of cultures, that is a little bit concerning. But if there is somebody that you were really attuned to in a sexual sense, this is going to heighten the desire motivation hugely. Now on the 21st, the Sun does make its way into the speedy and quick-witted and flirty Gemini, where it will be for the last 10 days of the month. But the ruler of the sign of Gemini, Mercury, is actually forging from the 6th through to the 28th, a fabulous link with Saturn. And Saturn in Pisces may be a more thoughtful energy, and maybe one that asks us to grapple with our emotions more. But I feel that it's important to understand, you know, the past investment of time, energy and emotion or care that have gone into certain situations, and to see the benefits that those things can have in terms of the more physical plane. Now, it is also the case that the Sun is going to be forging an extremely charismatic link with Mars across weeks 3 and 4 and the last few days of the month. Now this is going to go across 4 zodiac signs because both are going to be moving, so that's exciting in itself. The first one, between Taurus and Cancer, is very much about working with the emotional plane in terms of how we feel in terms of physical security. But once the Sun bustles its way into the air sign of Gemini, and Mars moves into the very grand and proud fire sign of Leo, I think it all gets much more outgoing and much more extrovert. So I think there can be quite a social dimension that really develops towards the end of this month. Also, the Sun forges a trine, again across 4 zodiac signs, with Pluto from the 19th through to the 24th. So some big evolutions can go on in our situations. With Pluto, it can be inner changes, or it can be the more physical world around us. But I think what we can all expect is things to speed up and become more exciting. But once Mercury comes to the end of its post-retrograde shadow on the 31st, then we're really going to be seeing a real sign of green shoots, I feel, when it comes to resources, as long as there is no big combustible event in terms of countries really getting into conflict towards the end of this month as Mars and Pluto face up. But essentially this is a month where I feel that the lunar eclipse provides a mirror for the next 6 months. So by the time we get around to the 8th of November this year, I think we will have worked our way through quite a lot of readjustments. And obviously the cost of living increase has been extremely painful for a lot of people and is not to be something that's commented on in a light way. But I think as we get around to the end of the influence of this particular lunar eclipse, we really will see things starting to unwind and we get a clearer picture, and hopefully things will become a lot more affordable for a lot more people, and there'll be greater liquidity around all of our finances and a greater sense of security. But of course the sign of Taurus is not just about money, it's all about our self-worth too, and also our sense of physical security. So if there are ways that we can be a bit thriftier or make the most of food that we cook ourselves, get more earthy in our approach to life in general, that can be a great way to surf the energies that this incredible month does provide for us. Now please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. So Aquarius, Pluto recently arrived in your sign on the 23rd of March, slams on the brakes at the very start of this month. It's going to be back into Capricorn by the 11th of June. But what's the implications? Well, Pluto actually forges a really positive link with the new moon, which occurs on the 19th of this month. And that could see something transforming around where you live, particularly if where you live has not felt very settled. As you know, as an Aquarius, I have moved twice in the last couple of years, and there's been a lot of changes going on around where we live, and maybe there's going to be some more. But a lot of electric energy with Uranus in the mix, your modern ruler, in the first couple of weeks of this month. But Uranus also threads into the lunar eclipse, which occurs on the 5th. So if you're not feeling particularly settled in your abode or around your family life, or your particular environment doesn't work for you, it's too quiet, too busy, whatever, then that may be something you'll want to address over the following 6 months on the back of the full moon. And because the retrograde's in the mix, but also links exactly Mercury with the Sun on the first day in the Cazimi, perhaps that's going to be a critical period for discussions about where you're going to live too. But on the 7th, Venus moves, and it moves into the sign of Cancer, which for you is quite a nice place for Venus to be in a way, because it's the more practical side of being demonstrative around romance. So, you know, making a partner a cup of tea, or putting the rubbish out, doing something extra for the domestic contribution would be appreciated. But equally, if you're single, you could forge a bit more of a bond with someone through your work, perhaps as a friend, perhaps as someone you can go for a coffee with, perhaps there could be some romance attached to it. And obviously once Mercury does go forwards on the 15th, generally things tend to speed up. Of course there can be some snares, but also remember Mercury can, in its retrograde, resolve, reprise. We can go back over something and find a solution. So that's possible too. However, on the 16th, Jupiter moves into the 4th house. If you are wanting an addition to the family, this is a fabulous portent. But also it could mean that some opportunities do knock around where you live. For some people it may be offering some kind of service in a local community in some way. Perhaps for others it would be actually relocating overseas. Jupiter is the planet of international affairs. The 19th, the new moon, really is great because it links positively with Pluto in your sign, but also Neptune in your sector of values, and Mars in at this part of the month in a very hard-working, industrious and physical area. So things could start to really pick up pace from then. Then, of course, on the 20th, Mars moves into your opposite sign. If there have been some tensions in whatever part of your life, and you really need to tell someone how you feel, blimey, I think you're going to do it around week 3 and 4 as Mars goes opposite Pluto. You're going to be a force to be reckoned with. In fact, if you are single, your desire to connect to someone, if that's what you want, can really increase. And with the Sun moving into your sector of romance on the 3rd and connecting brilliantly with Mars in a very, very potent, energized and very exciting way, I think your energy that you're going to be giving out is really going to be very evocative, and people can be really drawn to what you have to say. But despite Mercury's retrograde, it is in touch with your traditional ruler from the 6th to the 28th before coming out of the post-retrograde shadow on the 31st. So all the discussions you have this month, if it is about trying to get the right place to be in terms of the right budget, which is, we know, whether it's buying or rental, is really challenging at the moment. Certainly the planets are supporting you to deal with the reality of the world as it is in the best way possible. And then from the 19th to the 24th, the Sun aligns brilliantly again, 2 brilliance, with Pluto. So things are shifting and changing, but I think it could feel a bit like a maelstrom. That's a good word, isn't it? For late on a Monday evening as I'm recording this. Yes, a maelstrom of energy around your home and emotional life is possible in the first couple of weeks of this month. But from all of this, which may have really started to feel quite intense since last autumn, I think in terms of the northern hemisphere, last spring for the south, you're going to come into the light. And as this month goes on, I think things are going to start to feel much lighter and much more progressive for you.